Breaking Chains, Building Bridges, The Healing Journey of Black Families. Through trauma, have you ever watched a child try to make sense of something they shouldn't have to understand? That moment when their eyes change just slightly as another piece of innocence slips away? I recently had the profound honor of interviewing Jennifer Mines, whose groundbreaking work in healing intergenerational trauma in Black families has transformed countless lives. Jennifer isn't just a researcher or therapist, she's a visionary who walks between worlds, translating ancestral wisdom into modern healing practices with the precision of a surgeon and the soul of a griot. Her approach has literally saved lives in communities where mental health resources have historically been scarce, stigmatized, or culturally disconnected. Through her work, families who once felt trapped in cycles of pain are now authoring new stories of liberation and joy. The conversation with Jennifer left me thinking about something that keeps me up at night. How do we protect our children from inheriting our wounds while still preparing them for a world that won't always protect their hearts? Here's what I know for sure: when a Black child experiences trauma, they're not just dealing with what happened, they're processing it through a lens that's been shaped by generations before them. In a society that often refuses to acknowledge their full humanity, it's like trying to heal a wound while someone keeps reopening it, then blaming you for bleeding. This isn't just about the obvious traumas, the ones that make headlines or leave visible scars. It's about the daily paper cuts of existence that over time can cause just as much bleeding. The teacher who consistently mispronounces your child's name despite correction. The security guard who follows your teenager around the store. The history lesson that reduced your ancestors to nothing but their suffering. Let me paint you a picture from one of Jennifer's most impactful stories. A Black mother noticed her children developing anxiety after experiencing repeated racial bias at school. The signs were subtle at first: reluctance to attend class, declining grades, emotional outbursts at home. But beneath these symptoms lay years of unaddressed microaggressions that had slowly eroded their sense of safety. What struck me about this story wasn't just the pain, it was what happened next. This mother, carrying her own unhealed wounds, made a decision that would alter her family's trajectory. She sought therapy, but not just any therapy. After several false starts with providers who couldn't understand the cultural dimensions of her family's experience, she found someone trained in culturally responsive, trauma informed care. The difference was transformative. For the first time, their experiences with racism were validated rather than minimized. They were equipped with coping strategies that honored their cultural identity instead of asking them to suppress it. They weren't told to just ignore it or work twice as hard. Those well meaning but ultimately exhausting pieces of advice that have been passed down through generations of Black families. Within months, both parent and children reported reduced stress levels. School performance improved as their emotional well being stabilized. The family developed language around emotional expression specific to their culture. They began attending advocacy meetings at school together, turning individual healing into collective action. But here's what really gets me: their journey inspired other parents in their community to seek out culturally competent resources. One family's courage to change created ripples that continue to expand. That's not just healing, that's revolution. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. That's a nice story, but my situation is different. My trauma runs deeper. My resources are more limited. My community isn't ready. I hear you. I do. And let me be clear, I'm not suggesting that healing from generations of trauma is as simple as finding the right therapist or reading the right book. That would be insulting to the depth of our experiences. But what if, and stay with me here, what if healing isn't something we do despite our circumstances, but because of them? What if our very survival depends on it? Jennifer's research shows that Black children often experience not just typical adverse childhood experiences like abuse or neglect, but also the added burden of racial trauma. This includes exposure to race based microaggressions, systemic discrimination, and vicarious trauma from witnessing incidents of racism, whether in person or through media. These layered experiences can lead to chronic stress, anxiety, depression, and symptoms similar to PTSD. The body keeps the score, as they say. And our children's bodies are keeping scores that include not just their own experiences, but sometimes ours too. They inherit not only our DNA, but our unresolved pain, our adaptive behaviors, our protective mechanisms, some of which may no longer serve them. Let me share another powerful example from Jennifer's work. A group therapy program designed specifically for Black women who experienced significant childhood adversity provided a safe space for shared healing. Initially, these women struggled with trust, both because of the stigma around mental health within their communities and fear that therapists wouldn't understand their cultural nuances. The breakthrough came when facilitators incorporated storytelling traditions familiar within African American culture alongside evidence based therapeutic techniques. This wasn't just therapy, it was cultural reclamation. It was returning to practices of communal healing that our ancestors knew intimately before those traditions were disrupted. Many of these women entered the program feeling isolated by both societal discrimination and unresolved familial pain dating back generations. But something magical happened in that space of collective vulnerability. They developed strong peer networks. Many went on to become advocates or mentors themselves after experiencing significant reductions in depression symptoms. The group celebrated collective milestones, such as organizing wellness workshops open to other mothers facing similar challenges. Their work helped shift local attitudes about mental health among Black women by modeling vulnerability paired with strength, showing that seeking help isn't weakness, but profound courage. This is what healing looks like when it's culturally responsive, when it acknowledges that our experiences as Black people aren't just universal human experiences with a little melanin sprinkled on top, but distinct journeys that require distinct approaches. As Audre Lorde reminded us, caring for myself is not self indulgence, it is self preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. When we heal ourselves, we are engaging in revolutionary acts that challenge systems designed to keep us wounded and separate. But what about our children who are witnessing trauma through screens? Jennifer highlighted a community youth center that noticed increased anxiety among its young members following widely publicized acts of racial violence seen online or on TV. These children showed signs of vicarious traumatization even without direct experience. Their caregivers felt powerless watching these effects unfold without clear guidance on intervention strategies. The center implemented regular healing circles facilitated by counselors trained specifically in Black mental health needs. Parents were invited into sessions focused on open dialogue about emotions triggered by news events. The results? Youth reported feeling less isolated. Parents gained tools for supporting conversations about difficult topics without re traumatizing themselves or their kids further. Prior to this intervention, many families simply avoided discussing traumatic news altogether, a silence that compounded stress over time. But through these healing circles, new partnerships formed between local schools and centers offering ongoing education about recognizing signs related directly to vicarious and racialized traumas. The broader community became more proactive about addressing collective grief tied specifically toward anti Black racism related events. They turned silence into strategy, avoidance into action. This matters because standard trauma informed care isn't always effective for Black families unless it's culturally adapted. Recognizing the unique role that race plays in both the experience of trauma and recovery is essential for true healing. Without this cultural responsiveness, interventions may fall short in addressing deep rooted pain. I want to pause here and acknowledge something important. This work is hard, it's exhausting. It's unfair that we have to heal from wounds we didn't create. There are days when I look at the magnitude of what we're up against and wonder if transformation is truly possible. But then I remember the words of Maya Angelou. You may not control all the events that happen to you, but you can decide not to be reduced by them. By actively choosing to heal ourselves as parents and caregivers, seeking support, advocating for our needs, and modeling resilience, we can help our children move forward from what they have witnessed or endured. This personal transformation disrupts intergenerational cycles of trauma and creates a foundation for healthier futures. Think about it this way. Every time we choose healing over hiding, vulnerability over vengeance, community over isolation, we're not just changing our own lives, we're altering the trajectory of generations to come. So I leave you with this challenge, not as a nice sentiment to ponder, but as an urgent call to action. Start one honest conversation this week with a child in your life about something difficult they've witnessed or felt. Listen without judgment, validate their experience, and if needed, reach out together for culturally competent support. This isn't just about individual healing, it's about collective liberation. Because when we break these chains of inherited trauma, we don't just free ourselves, we free our children and their children and generations not yet born. Our ancestors endured unimaginable suffering, not just so we could survive, but so we could one day thrive. We honor their sacrifice not by continuing to carry their pain, but by finally putting it down, by healing what they couldn't, by creating the joy they dreamed of. This is our sacred responsibility. This is our revolutionary act. This is how we transform trauma into triumph. One family, one community, one generation at a time. The future is watching and it's waiting for us to be brave enough to heal.